Dude, I have been absolutely suffering through this fasting journey.
Yeah,
I'm sitting here as we're recording and I'm like, I am so hungry.
I
But
know.
when we were recording earlier, I didn't feel quite as hungry.
I'm sorry. I just ate an apple and peanut butter in front of you
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
to
but
make you suffer a little more.
yeah, trying to go through a 72-hour fast journey is
It's a lot.
not easy. Yeah, I've done 48s before, but this is the first time doing a 72, so hopefully I'll hit the goal.
It's just another day.
Yeah, just another day, exactly.
What blows my mind is the people that do the 7-day fast.
Yes.
That's crazy.
7-day fasting is incredible. We have a guy that we hope to have on here someday. He just got done with a 7-day, a good friend of mine, and he was talking about his journey. He said after 48 hours it got bad on like day 3, if I remember right, which is what I plan to venture into. But then after that, he just lost all desire to eat, and obviously, water, lots of salt.
Yeah, just
Still
kind
had
of settle
coffee.
in.
Yep. But no liquid calories whatsoever. And
It's
just
wild.
rock and roll with it. So, but yeah, I think I'm on hour 44. So I'm almost there. Welcome to the Suffer Up podcast, guys. We are back. We are going to be discussing some topics such as being a man of your word, time management, and we're going to dip into mental toughness. We kind of alluded to it a little bit on the episode prior to this one, but just wanted to share with you guys some stuff that's been kind of pressing in our mind when Ryan and I were talking about the episode lineup and what we were going to talk about each week. I actually called Ryan because I was in a moment where I was rather frustrated and vented to him a little bit, and I was like, we need to just talk about things that are fresh, things that we're either going through or things that we're experiencing as we navigate this journey. And so we both kind of had topics, and so that's what we're going to talk about today while we're passionate and it's fresh.
Yeah, plans are good. I mean, we made a plan of a bunch of things we were going to make podcasts about and talk about, but sometimes what's best is what's on your mind right now and what we're currently dealing with or going through.
Yeah. So being present and time management. I've alluded to this before with some of the stuff that we talked about, but the time is a gift. It is a gift from God, as it talks about in Ecclesiastes 3. And with time, it obviously comes and goes. And so every moment that you have is a precious moment. Even if it is in a bad or suffering time, it is ultimately a gift. And what we do with that time is of the utmost importance. I know in my life, I have had moments where I'm having conversations with people and I'm sitting there looking at them and they're talking and I am not being an active listener. A lot of times we can get wrapped up with actually being a present listener, and they always say, listen more than you talk. And I can honestly say I'm super guilty of that. I learn more by listening, and especially
most people do.
Yeah, and even in the fire service, they say, open your ears and close your mouth for at least the first couple of years of your career, and that is very sound advice to apply to life too. But just that concept of time. It's difficult to truly understand when you think about time, and then when you think about even eternity. It's crazy. Like, I don't think we can fully grasp what eternity means, forever and ever.
Can't even fully grasp what our lifetime looks like, mostly because we don't know how long that's going to be. That's like the number one thing that makes time invaluable, is that you don't know how much you got.
Right.
You knew how many minutes you were going to have in your life, then I guess you could try and spend them all perfectly, but could be tomorrow, could be 10 years, could be 50 years. Got an undefined amount of time left, and it seems like a lot of people struggle with that concept and utilizing their time as best as possible, knowing that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try and just block it out.
Yeah. If you look back, at least I do in my life, you look back and you look at time and times that you've wasted time, like this morning or last night, actually, we were sitting around the table and we were talking about our plan for the next day. And I'm like, oh, I'll run when I get home. Wait, I can't because I got to do this. Or I'll just have to get up early and run. Lauren's like, you don't have to run. I said, no, I have to. Like, I have to fill that time with something, But hindsight, we can oftentimes fill our time with a lot of distractions, and every single thing that we do ultimately, it's the time clock's constantly ticking. So
I'm really bad for doing that by runs. Like I'll plan a run, and it might be a 45-minute run or something, and so I block out an hour on my schedule to do a 45-minute run. Man, there's like a little bit of warm up involved. There's some cool down and stretching involved, and like a 45-minute run is really an hour and a half long deal.
And get after it.
And so, yeah, I'm just really bad about not scheduling things properly and allotting for that time.
Do you ever get to, like, you put your shoes on, right? And then you get out, maybe take a sip of water, whatever.
Just procrastinating?
Yeah, you procrastinate. Yeah. And it's like, the run's inevitable.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to run.
And I don't even hate it.
No,
it's just
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know. You end up procrastinating, or like, I'm going to do this stretch, or I see something that I need to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I do it all the time, man.
And then you almost put your shoes on, and then the morning runs are the most difficult for me. Well, that's partly why I do them. So, like, I get up around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then there's a wake-up process.
Yep.
Like, I get up, I make my coffee, and then I go outside, and whatever the weather's doing, enjoy that moment. And then I sit down, usually will read something, try to activate my brain a little bit. But then I've caught myself a few times with my mind wandering, and then I look at my clock, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll go run now, and then I go run, and then it wasn't as productive of a run as it could have been.
Yeah. I have shortened my runs in the past because I did that, where I procrastinated. I was supposed to run an hour or something, and I just joked around and found other things to do before the run, right before the run. I get out of the house at the right time to go for that run, but then I decide I'm going to do some push-ups first, or I'm going to do a sit-ups first.
Yeah.
And you fill your time with random stuff, and then I'm like, oh man, I've only got 30 minutes to run now. Well, I just shorted myself on that. And I may have been being productive doing push-ups or something, but I may not have to. There's been times where I've just gotten distracted doing other things.
Right. And what cracks me up, and I'm not hating on them because they're out there doing it, but like the casual weightlifter in the gym.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Checking their phone in between every rep.
Yeah, or they're getting their tripod set up for the the Instagram or whatever.
Filming, yeah.
It's like, how productive are you really being? Like, your cardiovascular is just going like up and down. Like, you're in the lift, then you're out. But if you just knocked out a solid 30 minutes, just 30 minutes of like constant dedicated time.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think the American attention span has slowly decreased.
Yeah.
To staying present.
I think it's easy to think about time management in a sense of, going to the gym or going on a run or going to work and like doing a task. I think where people struggle with time management the most is in the times that aren't specifically allotted. We just talked about how you can still struggle with it in those times, but in the downtime, in the in-between times, the transition from one thing to another, on your drive to work, what are you doing? Are you just listening to the radio? Are you listening to a podcast? Are you praying? Whatever it may be, is it productive? Is it beneficial? And not that every minute of your life has to be productive, but there's a lot of wasted time that could have been productive that isn't. So, there's a saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And that is so true. If you sit around in your downtime and do nothing but scroll and scroll and scroll on the Instagrams and Facebooks, then you're just not practicing productivity and growth. So when it comes time to do that run, you're more likely to get a text message and look at that and then get distracted. And I think one thing leads to another.
Yeah. We're constantly tied to that. It's almost like an anchor,
Oh, yeah.
But I know the times where I've been completely out of the unplugged, if you will. It's, you don't realize how many times you grab the phone. You know what I mean? You don't realize it's always there.
That Death by 5K that we did, being at the location that it was with no cell service, I really, really appreciated that.
Yeah.
more than I thought I would. And in the moment, you don't realize it. But looking back, like, man, I wasn't on my phone hardly at all that weekend because there was no cell service.
Right.
You're out of it. And it's frustrating at times because you're trying to call somebody and you're like, man, I can't get any signal. But the rest of the time, man, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is.
Just being disconnected.
Yeah. And it's becoming harder. I think for the first time in probably forever, this is the first time that we've been so connected that you now have to purposefully put yourself in those situations just to unplug.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you have to try to disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the past, you would have had to try to connect.
Yeah. Now, think about a time. I have an example of this, but I'm going to ask you on the spot.
Okay.
What is some areas that you can kind of carve out intentional time? Like when you think about the word intentional, what that means, like purposeful, intentional, meaningful. Can you think of a time where, like throughout your day, where you're being purposeful or intentional with your time for others?
Yeah, my number one thing that comes to mind would probably be like dinner time.
Yeah.
When it's not just dinner time itself, but the making of dinner.
Yeah.
When that's happening, the only thing that my phone's doing, if anything at all, would be playing music. Sometimes we have dance parties in our kitchen while we're making dinner.
Yeah.
My girls love that, and that's just a fun time to be present with them. And if we're not dancing around listening to music, then the phone's still, put up in the room or somewhere else, and we're spending that time talking with each other about the day and talking about what's coming up, whatever's on our minds. We're chatting during that time, and that carries over to dinner itself, where we're sitting around the table actually discussing things while we eat. We've been guilty of it in the past, of like having a sports game on or anything on a TV or phone while you're eating dinner, and everybody's just so tuned out to what's happening immediately around them that, for instance, one time we were watching a basketball game or something on our phone, and my daughter grabbed her tablet. She's got a tablet that she's got like a couple hours of screen time on a day, and she popped that thing up at the kitchen table, and I looked at her, I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, you guys are on your phone. And it didn't even occur to me till she said that. But yeah, we were watching a basketball game or something on our phone. So she figured, well, I'll just sit here and play on my tablet while I eat dinner because, we're not doing anything else. And man, that's a gut punch.
Oh yeah.
That's like, oh man, that's not what I want my kid to be doing at the dinner table. What am I doing?
Kids will humble you in a hurry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You talk about dinner. While you were talking, I looked up a quick statistic on.
You were on your phone while I was talking?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I'm trying to contribute here.
Yeah,
okay?
no,
yeah, I know. But it says here that data suggests that a smaller portion, potentially under 30% of the population, eat dinner together regularly.
Under 30%.
Under 30.
Wow. And if they are eating dinner together, I wonder what percentage of that are doing what I was just describing, where you're eating dinner together, but not really talking or being present with each other.
Less than half the population
is
having dinner together.
Less than a third. That is insane.
Why?
What are they doing?
Do you think it's the busy American lifestyle and people are grabbing like food to go?
Oh yeah.
I'm
sure that's part of it.
But I know like dinner time is a very special time. Like,
yeah.
I'm very fortunate with my wife's schedule that we can almost, unless I'm on shift, we can every morning have breakfast and dinner together. Lunch is kind of in the air. Lunch is kind of graze, at least for us, because we got, kids put down for nap time, all that kind of stuff. But dinner and breakfast even, like Lauren and I, we will have almost every morning we'll have a cup of coffee or something together in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So that's, and, once you have kids, it's like pass and go. Like you're, whatever little bit of time, you get to be more efficient with that time for sure.
Yeah.
But dinners, man, 30%. I grew up having dinners together as a family around the table.
Every day.
Yeah.
I grew up eating dinner with my parents, but a lot of the times we would do TV dinner, not a TV dinner meal, but my mom would make dinner, but then we would sit and watch TV as a family with our tray tables or something and eat dinner. We did that a lot. I don't think that was necessarily a terrible thing because we were still doing it together, and it was
Yeah.
something that we did almost every night. But I don't think it was the best practice.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that with my kids now. Yeah, I just don't feel like that's the best use of that time.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, that was a staggering statistic. I was sitting there, I'm like, I wonder what well, this is AI though, so who knows? But that's what
That's
that was
what the
according
AI
to,
overview says.
yeah, the American Family Survey and the CBS poll kind of suggests that.
Wow.
But yeah, that's wild.
I'd say that the numbers for breakfast are far lower,
Oh yeah.
and the numbers for lunch are probably close to zero.
Yeah, probably.
Because everybody's busy during the day.
Mm-hmm.
But that's wild. So if that's the case, that like dinner's probably the most likely time that you're sitting there with your family,
Yeah.
and it's less than a third.
Less than a third. That's
Wow.
crazy. I'll give an example of answering the question that I just asked.
Yeah.
Is for me with my daughter, because I got my son who's 3, and then I have my daughter who's 5 now, and we drive her to and from school to drop her off, and she said to me one day, "Daddy, are you dropping me off at school?" And I said yes, and she just talked the entire way there, and I got to thinking, like, I haven't spent a lot of one-on-one time with her because of just busyness of life, and we do daddy-daughter dates and stuff like that, but that time, that drive to and from school is super special for her, to where it's like, there's no little man around, there's none of that, it's just me and her, and I'm able to hear what's going on. But then I've caught myself being distracted with what's going on because I'm in my truck, just want to drive, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's like a really special time for us, even though it is 10, 15 minutes to school. But finding little times throughout the day to carve out that intentional time with family, because life's short, and before we know it, they won't want anything to do with us anymore, and they'll be doing their own thing, which is just a part of life. But I hope that she'll remember those little moments where Dad took time out of his schedule to be purposeful with it.
Yeah, it was more than just a drive to school.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But
I think that's a good example of how everyday tasks can be used to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a drive to school, but it's more than that. And I think that as she gets older, and especially when she's a parent herself one day, she'll look back and be like, man, that was so impactful in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to do that with my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note too, with like everyday tasks and stuff, obviously, we've got work, we've got church, we've got whatever is going on, hobbies, things to fix around the house, the truck, car, whatever.
Exercise to do.
Exercise.
Yeah.
All part of our day, and we try to fit as much as we can into our day, but also have time to be still and really spend time in God's word, meditate. All those things are super important, which makes up what we are here at Suffer Up. But one of those things I always try to do is I always try to be purposeful with friends. And, my wife understands it, having moved from Atlanta area to here. A lot of guys come down here to vacation on the white sandy beaches. So I've always said that if somebody comes in from out of town, I will do my hardest or do my best to be there for them and at least pop in, even if it's for 30 minutes, to grab a cup of coffee with them if they're within a reasonably close proximity.
Yeah.
Within a couple hours, I'll drive a couple hours to go see somebody and just
it's a whole lot closer than Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. And I value those friendships I made up there, and I want to still hear what's going on with them, catch up, and we have a bond there because we worked at the same place for so long, and hear how things are going. And I enjoy my friendships. I'm very blessed to have a good network of friends. But this last week, I had a good friend of mine, did some training classes and whatnot with him. He texted me a week out and said, "Hey, we're in town." I said, "Awesome." I was at the firehouse, and he said, "Yeah, man, we got to meet up. I'd love to see you." I said, "I would as well. How does Wednesday work? We'll grab a cup of coffee, maybe grab breakfast." He's like, "Yeah, that'll work." Super low key, and they're on vacation, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, we're not trying to take the whole day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I got up at like 4 a.m., drove down there, got a nice morning run in at one of the state park, good 8-mile run in. And
you drove like an hour almost.
Yeah, it
to
was
go
an
there.
hour and 10 minutes. Yep. I got there, did my run, changed, and read my Bible a little bit. Just kind of played on my phone for a while, and then texted him and said, "Hey, let's meet around 8." Super low key originally, somewhere between 8 and 9 we'll meet up at breakfast. And I didn't really have a super strict schedule that day, but I was planning to be home around lunchtime. Went and sat in the Waffle House parking lot. All right. Made a couple phone calls to some other friends, tried to catch up with some downtime, no distractions.
Yeah, we talked about some stuff. I called you during that time.
Yeah. Ryan called me and
did some suffer up work.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, then 9 o'clock rolls by. Now, mind you, I'd sent a couple texts. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm at the Waffle House parking lot. Whenever you guys are up and at 'em, just shoot me a text. I'll be here." Nothing. Texted the other guy who's in the group, and he said, "Yeah, I'm down at the air base, looking at the airplanes." I said, "Okay, cool." He's like, "Have you not heard from him yet?" I said, "No." It's like, doggone it. Dude, I got stood up, man.
You got stood up.
I got stood up.
By a friend.
By a friend.
That, a friend that suggested that you guys get together.
Yeah.
He reached out to you.
Yeah. And if, I'm not going to say any names, but if you hear this on here, I still love you. But I got me thinking, which is why we're talking about it today. Now I still got a good run in, so it's still a productive morning.
Yeah.
But I was done with the run by 7:15. From 7:15 to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Waiting around. But I'll never get that back.
No.
That's gone. But that ties into the time that we have, like being a man of your word. If you say you're going to be there, like the other day, I said I was going to be here at 8:45 to do a podcast recording. I showed up like 2 or 3 minutes late, and I had a reason, but I said I was going to be here at 8:45, and I was not. The first thing that Ryan said to me, he didn't say hi, didn't say what's up, bro, didn't say any of that. He said, "You're late. You owe me 10 pull-ups."
That's the pot calling the kettle black, guys. I'm like notorious for being late to places, but I'm trying to uphold a higher standard and not go ahead, Nate.
No, you're good.
Carry on.
Yeah, so I looked at him and I sighed. I was like, all right. I had to drop my daughter off at school, and I was like, you know what? Nope, those are just excuses.
Yeah.
Those are just excuses. And I
caught yourself before I could. You're like,
never
mind. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to do it.
So I got up on that pull-up bar, and I got like 4 or 5 in, and then Ryan's watching me. He says, "All the way down, Nate." Hi. Yeah, let's go.
Let's make them count.
Yeah, make them count. So, lock out all the way down. Got my 10 reps in consecutively. And then I was like, you know what? That's good. I love being able to hold each other accountable and pushing like that, where Ryan challenged me because I was late, and I preach on being on time. And at the end of the day, 3 minutes, did it make or break our mission for that day? No. But it's the principle.
Yeah.
It's the principle.
It's a standard. And I mean, if we're going to sit here and call other men to live better and just call them to a higher standard, then we should absolutely be upholding that standard ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm working on in my own life. It's something that I truly believe that we need people to call us accountable, or call us out and hold us accountable.
Yeah.
So that was my opportunity to do that for you.
Yeah.
And I fully expect the same thing in return. I'll drop and give you push-ups or whatever it may be. Because if nobody calls you out on it, then what's stopping you from doing it again?
Well, and it affects other people too.
Yeah.
Like, what you do with your time affects other people. As soon as it affects other people, now you're being selfish.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not okay with that.
I don't want to be that person.
No. Like, if you're the guy that's always late, everybody knows you're the guy that's always late. What does that show them? You're not managing your time correctly. You're not disciplined in time management.
Yeah, or you don't value what you're doing or them, the other people involved, enough to be that respectful.
Mm-hmm.
My wife will tell you that I am notorious for being late to things and places just because I live a loose lifestyle as far as time goes. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to be there at this time.
Yeah.
And that's true, but if you say you're going to be, well, now you do have to be there at that time.
You put words to it.
Yeah. You have given yourself this, you have set the standard for yourself. And so if you're not upholding that, then you're just going to start to be known as the guy who doesn't keep his word.
Yeah.
And that starts with something as simple as being on time and can end up being far bigger, more meaningful things.
You know what's helped me with my time?
What's that?
Google Calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping a schedule.
Yeah. Google Calendar, big time. Like, I would say, yeah, I've got this going on. And, I told my wife, and nobody will really know who was right or who was wrong. But at the end of the day, she was always right. So, but I know I told her, but she doesn't remember me telling her. But I probably didn't tell her because, she's always right.
Yeah.
But if it's on the Google Calendar, Google never lies.
Yeah.
I mean, it's on there. If it's on there, it's on there.
It's on the schedule.
So keep a schedule, do something. I used to do a paper calendar. I quit doing that now that technology's advanced.
Yeah. Well, the paper calendar is nice. My wife loves to do pen and paper stuff. Like in college, she would write out her essays on paper first and then type them up.
Oh, wow.
Which blows my mind because that seems like double the work. But she really enjoyed the process of writing it out. So she likes like a paperback organizer, calendar, planner deal. But we are using the Apple Calendar on our phone now and do the family sharing thing on there. We share it with each other and our parents. It's just a really easy way to organize things, and it doesn't take much effort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more than just you two. It's a good way to communicate across family households and everything.
Yeah, we can train our mind with in everyday tasks, and then we got a little bit back to time management. But one of the thoughts that I've had recently, I was talking to another firefighter about this, about training your mind through those everyday tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't original. I heard it and it was kind of thought provoking, of doing something that's difficult for you during the day to try to overcome those things. Like one of the instances he suggested was using your mouse with the left hand. Do you ever find yourself purposely trying to do something that is slightly more difficult than what? Like you could just use your right hand because that's what you're used to.
Intentionally doing a hard thing.
Yeah, intentionally doing a hard thing through that. But then I was talking to that firefighter, when we were doing some search drills, when we get tired, our bodies resort back to the muscle memory of whatever we first learned. So, when we're searching, we're staying low and we're searching the house for life. And whenever you get tired, naturally you kind of like clam up, that's like your body's natural response is the kind of like self-preservation.
Yeah.
And so if you notice when the fireman gets tired, he resorts to a baby crawl. Well, when you go to a baby crawl profile, you're in a very small, compact platform. So you're not really reaching, like your searchable space now has become less.
Mm.
But then I got to thinking about it. It's like, that was the first movement we really learned.
Yeah.
And, go back 32 years.
It's hard to unlearn that.
Yeah.
Or train it the other way.
That's what you first learned. And when you look at the development of a baby, if they don't crawl, they miss some big milestones with their physical development.
We talked about this in the last episode, crawl, walk, run.
Yeah, crawl, walk, run.
Mean, yeah, you learn how to crawl first.
Yeah. And so when we get tired, fatigued, whatever, we go into the self-preservation mode, which I allude to baby crawling because that's a muscle memory. But training your mind, and it looks different for everybody, but training your mind to do things slightly different. Like you alluded to writing with both hands.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I should probably start now that we talked about it. Try to write with my left hand.
I don't think that's for everybody.
No, I don't think so either. But it was like just a thought of like, what can you implement in your life to try to make things slightly more difficult? Or like try to screw the head of a screw with your left hand because I'm right-handed. I mean, you have to think about which way you're turning it for a second. Like righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, but you know what I mean? It's those little things that you can do to kind of throw yourself off kilter.
I'll use my wife again as an example. She resisted us getting a riding lawnmower for so long because she wanted the push mower.
Really?
Yeah. She was like, that's like my way of exercise or whatever it was, or whatever the reasoning was. But I chalk it up to that. Like that was her like forcing herself to do a hard thing, even though
Sure.
there's an easier way out there.
Yeah.
She was like, no, I want to do it this way. Okay.
But you're more efficient with your time on a rider.
Yeah, you are.
So what's more important?
You may be more efficient with your time. So that's a good point. So like, what is efficiency? Like because it takes less time, does that make it more efficient if you get less out of it? Or sometimes something that takes more time, but you get more out of it? What's truly more beneficial? I don't think efficiency is really, I don't think efficiency is really the end goal here.
Yeah.
We want to grow and be better. Sometimes that looks like being more efficient. Sometimes that looks like slowing things down on purpose.
Yeah.
And doing the hard thing.
But you could also be even more efficient with that time when you're cutting the grass. It becomes a family activity.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So then you prolong the family activity by push mowing, and then you let the kids, when they get a little bit older, run the blower or the weed eater.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could apply that anywhere.
Yeah.
That's getting in the weeds. That's getting in the weeds. No, but I love it. So you kind of talked about that just a little bit with doing something hard. And I think the overall trend, especially here at Suffer Up, is doing the tough things.
Yeah.
And, we talk about it a lot, and it's kind of the underlying developed theme with Suffer Up and what that looks like. But what would you say to somebody that says that they want to build mental toughness or mental resiliency?
I would say that you're going to have to train it. Nothing's going to come naturally in that regards. I mean, humans are creature comfort people.
Mm-hmm.
We crave the comfort. We always want to make things easier. We innovate to do that. I mean, we invented a car so we didn't have to walk or ride a horse. So many things that we've created as a society to make things easier, and that's really cool. That's awesome that we're advancing in those regards, and people are out there creating these things, inventing them. That means that we're smart, but what does it mean overall as a society? It means that we're a bit weaker than we used to be.
Yeah.
There's a saying that I think I've got the patch up there. What's it say, Nate?
Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Yeah. So that's kind of the cycle here is hard times make strong men make good times. And those good times, which I think we're living in right now, are the good times. They create weak men. And I think that's very true. And these weak men go on to create hard times, and the cycle repeats. So if you want to be more mentally tough, if you want to kind of build your resilience to things, then you got to do the hard things.
Yeah.
And that's gonna make you tougher. That's gonna make you more prepared for when hard things that are out of your control happen, because they definitely will.
Yeah. And then, like you said, resiliency versus reliance. So like you're resilient, you're constantly
prepared.
You're prepared, right? Yeah. And then reliance, you have to rely on something.
Yeah.
I think they both will work together, because we should, like the Bible says that we should share each other's burdens. We should be reliant, but we should also be self-sufficient, but we ultimately should be sufficient. Like God is ultimately sufficient, right? But we should be able to look to Him, not man, in order to overcome these things that we're talking about. But resiliency is you are equipping and preparing yourself to be able to push through or past whatever it is that you're facing.
Yeah.
And you're building that mental resiliency so that, whatever your coworker, your boss says to you, or, some negative comment, those things aren't going to affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately words will affect you, but how are you going to process those words and be able to change your response, and be
think
able.
you alluded to something there, and that's that like our modern day era here has created this false idea that we're supposed to rely on ourselves. Like we're tough. I'm not gonna say we're God, but a lot of people just think that like we have all the answers.
Yeah.
You should be able to rely on yourself. Be reliant on that, but you can't do it all alone.
Mm-mm.
You need people in your corner, and you need God. So I think you need to be reliant on Him first. Look to others for help when you need it, but being reliant will come from training that resilience.
Yeah.
You can't be reliant on yourself to know what to do and act under pressure in a fire if you haven't trained it through the resilience of training and practicing. So you can't even rely on yourself unless you train resilience. And I don't think that we're just naturally meant to rely on ourselves.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
not going to work.
That's not how God created us, really.
No. We're designed to live in community and with Him and others.
And I mean, like, iron sharpeneth iron. We should constantly be holding each other accountable. And in the Old Testament, it talks about holding people accountable, like the epistles, Paul and stuff. Like, he talks about addressing the church and issues that are coming up in the church. Like, he's outwardly expressing his concerns with what's happening. And, there's some slight sanctification, if you will, that kind of happens there. But apply that to every day. If Ryan's doing something that I don't agree with, we're going to have a conversation.
Yep.
And I might be wrong, but having the conversation with somebody, is kind of, it's provoking. Like,
oh yeah.
And it happens.
I'm either going to be forced to defend my position. I'm going to be forced to defend my position, or concede to what you're saying is true. Like, yeah, I messed up.
Right.
But if I can defend it and say, I'm doing this for a reason, well, then maybe you were wrong, but we had this conversation. Now we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Whereas I may also be wrong. I may have been late because I was lazy and didn't prepare my morning accordingly. So then I wake up and, I'm running behind and so on. And so like that is a mistake on my end that I don't have a defense for. I just messed up.
Yeah.
But it takes another person holding you accountable for that.
Through that, you'll see change.
To know. Yeah, absolutely. That's how you're going to build mental toughness. You can't do it all by yourself.
No.
You need others.
And I know even from like running, working out, gear workouts, whatever,
Yep.
when I do it with somebody, it takes a lot when you're solo. Like the mental aspect of it, when you're out there suffering by yourself, it takes a lot of fortitude to push on and push past those barriers.
Yeah.
More so than if you and I are going for a run.
Yep.
Or whatever. Because it's like you're either dragging me or I'm dragging you. Most of the time you're dragging me. But at the end of the day, when we're doing it together, you were able to push each other and be able to hold each other accountable.
And even if I was the one dragging you on a run, you wanted to stop or you wanted to slow down and I'm dragging you, I probably wouldn't have ran that hard or that far by myself either.
Yeah.
Because I'm showing out a little bit.
You get more out of it.
I'm pushing myself because I know it'll push you.
Yes.
It's kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last episode as far as being the teacher.
Yeah.
You don't truly learn something until you teach it. Well, you don't truly push yourself until you're pushing someone else either.
Yeah.
If you're going to push somebody else to learn or to grow or run faster, you're going to naturally be pushing yourself to do the same.
Yeah.
Because, if you're doing it right, we want to lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, you have to push yourself too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was all awesome, solid advice and points there. And here at Suffer Up, we hope to be able to not only hold Nate and Ryan accountable with each other, but also be able to help anybody else that may have things that are going on and they might want some help or encouragement. And I hope and pray that these are an encouragement to somebody out there for sure.
Yeah. Our mission is to encourage and lead others to suffer with a purpose, and we strive to level up and then with an emphasis on spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. Well, this is a big part of that mental well-being is developing your resilience and fortitude to do hard things and not do everything alone. This is a movement that we're trying to create here and encourage community and growth together, not individually.
Whatever you're going through, whatever your goals are, I guarantee you there's somebody else out there who has been through the same thing.
Yep. And there's lots of other people going through the same thing right now.
Yeah.
You guys can band together and grow together.
Make it happen. Level up a suffer up.
Love it.
You can find us on Instagram. If you go to our Instagram page, you'll find also a link tree with all of our apps or URLs there with all of our podcasts that you can find. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, all your major platforms. We also just want to do a thank you to our sponsors at Sofsocs. They create a sock that is a toe sock for not only the runner, but also for the everyday hardworking individual who just wants a good quality sock. They're locally owned and operated here in the US of A, and they create an awesome sock that is form-fitting to your foot, and I have noticed a drastic improvement in not only my foot functioning, but also the overall health of my feet. So you can check them out at softsock.com.
Yep. I've been using Sofsocs for a few months now, and I don't want to go back to any other socks.
Yeah, they're awesome socks. No, we absolutely love them. So please check them out. There'll also be a discount code for you in the description of this podcast. So get you at least a pair of their socks, support a veteran-owned and American-owned company, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed with them. We both wear them, we both love them, and they are phenomenal. They make a phenomenal product. So please tune in next week for another episode of the Suffer Up podcast. And once again, thank you so much to our listeners who are subscribing and following this channel. And we hope that what we said today and in the future will impact your life. And we just love you guys and are so thankful for this opportunity to share our hearts with you.
Thank you, guys.